Recording in progress.
Good afternoon. Welcome to today's session. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Today we are going to be talking about, and by we, I mean I, am going to be talking about places to source grants for nonprofit organizations, specifically those with 501c3 status. My name is Hadiza Saadu. I am Kansas City Public Library's small business and nonprofit specialist. And what we're going to be covering today in particular are two databases. The first one is Foundation Directory Online, which is available through Kansas City Public Library's digital catalog, as well as Grants.gov, which is accessible from anywhere. It's not actually available directly through our catalog. It is a federal resource available to the public. So as we get started, there are a few learning outcomes that I personally hope that those who are watching this take away. The first being, by the end of the time today, hopefully you know how to explain the ways in which you can access and use Foundation Directory Online to find grants and learn about funders. Know how to access and use grants.gov. Identify your organization's needs before conducting a search for grant funding, whether it be in Foundation Directory Online, grants.gov, or another database that you may have identified with your own research. Find prospects that relate to a project-based search, and then evaluate whether or not prospects that you find are a good fit for your needs. And all of that being said, I want to just highlight the fact that I am available for one-on-one assistance. So this is going to be about 1 hour. So I don't necessarily expect that you will be an expert by the end of our time together. But some general familiarity is what the main goal is. That way, if you do decide to follow up one-on-one, we can hit the ground running with what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And we will go from there. So as you're getting started, you represent a nonprofit organization and you are new to the world of finding grants. There are 3 questions that you need to kind of anchor yourself to before you even start a search. The first one is, who are you serving? The second, where are they located? Now, this where question is a question that's specific and important, especially if you are looking in Foundation Directory Online. And we'll get to that later, very shortly. And then last, but definitely not least, what are you doing for them? So when I work with people one-on-one, what I like to say is the more ways that you can kind of describe the who and the what, the better, as far as how you can refine and if needed, expand your search. And we'll get to that more specifically when we look at the example very shortly. Okay, so diving into Foundation Directory Online, for those of you who are not familiar with it at all, a little bit of background. It has a pretty vast scope as far as the amount of funders that are represented. There are over 140,000 funders that are listed on Foundation Directory Online. So that means over 140,000 funder profiles that you can access in theory, not necessarily in practice. But then of those funders, there are over 1 million recipients of grants. And then year on year, they are adding over 4 million grants. And so what you get as far as depth when you're looking on Foundation Directory Online is you'll be able to see very detailed profiles of funders, and I'll be able to show you that in a few minutes, as well as the grants that they've given in the past, recipients of those grants, as well as companies. And it is updated every day. So that is something that you can count on as far as the grant applications being current. And as far as availability goes, so if you're completely new to Foundation Directory Online, all of this will be new to you. If you're not new to it, this is going to be a change. But currently there is remote access available. It is available in the form of a 24-hour pass, and I will be sending out a document with that information. It's a little bit complicated, so I didn't think it made sense to try to cover that during our time here, but basically you'll have 24 hours to access Foundation Directory Online, and the document has tips and tricks for how to make the best use of that. I'm not a fan of that. So alternatively, as of June 1st, and if you're watching this after June 1st, know that this is available. Foundation Directory Online, the full version is available at the Central Library, which I am conducting this virtual program from, and it'll be available without appointment. So if you're watching this before June 1st and you do need to get to finding and applying for a specific grant, or you just need to generate a list before June 1st, you will need to schedule an appointment if you're trying to do that at Central. I can also do that on your behalf, so just let me know. Let's get into how Foundation Directory Online actually works. But before we do that, for those of you who are a little bit curious, this is just a list of the sources of data that Foundation Directory Online pulls from. The one thing I wanted to highlight about this list is the last bullet point. Foundation Directory Online does have direct relationships with a number of the funders that are listed on the database, which is a unique attribute that they have and proprietary, just as far as the currency goes with the grants that are listed. Okay, so when you are actually inside Foundation Directory Online, you are going to come to a homepage that looks just like this. And this is what is called a project-based search. There will be a bar that says find the funding. And there's an example here grayed out that says ballet school in New York City, animal shelter in Portland, Maine, food pantry in Dallas. So these are just prompts to get you thinking if you're kind of at a loss for what keyword phrase you want to use to start your search. So the example that we are going to look at today is for arts in Kansas City. So this is a project-based search, and this screen here is an example of what it looks like if you're accessing this with the 24-hour pass from home. What I want to point out about the difference between the limited version available from home with the 24-hour pass versus the version available from Central is that when you do conduct a search, you will not be able to see the number of grants or the number of recipients that relate to that search. So now let's back up and kind of dissect what's going on with this search term. So when we conducted this search, what we typed in the find funding bar was arts in Kansas City. And then what Foundation Directory Online did was it decided to take some guesses as to what we meant more specifically when we said arts in Kansas City. So this is where we're focusing on the what. When we searched for arts in Kansas City, Foundation Directory Online also said arts education, arts councils, art and music therapy, performing arts education, art history, arts administration, public arts, exhibitions, program support, Kansas City, Missouri, United States. And it also added some terms that were not relevant, like art museums and zoos. So as you can see here in the subject area, these purple boxes correspond to the specific terms that relate to the what. We are located in Kansas City, Missouri, so that is the where. And we did not specify a population. But say we wanted to specify arts education for youth. This would be the box where the what we would want to filter by youth demographics. And I will show you a little bit about what that looks like in just a second. So here we've got an example of the full version. The difference here is you can see the number of grants. So related to the search, and this time we did St. Louis instead of Kansas City. So this search yielded 439 grants and 79 recipients. So what I'm gonna do now is pull up Foundation Directory Online from kansascitylibrary.org. And I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so you know exactly how to do that from home in case you want to use the 24-hour access pass. So I'm on the Kansas City Public Library homepage. I am going to go to resources/research, and I'm going to go to F. And since I am inside the central library, once I click more info under Foundation Directory Online, I am going to access Foundation Directory Online Professional. So this is what the homepage looks like. We'll go to the Find Funding bar. And we are going to do a search for arts education, Kansas City. See what we get. So generally speaking, this looks like a lot. I think this might be a little bit. We're going to exclude the US federal funders because we want to just find local funding. Arts education, Kansas City. Go to the advanced filters. And now we're going to refine this because I figured it didn't actually capture this. We want to specify Kansas City. And we want to specify an age group here. So we're going to filter down. But I also want to point out that there are several different socioeconomic and demographic categories under population served, that if you're not already thinking about the specific demographics in which you're serving, this is a way to help kind of refine that if that is something that makes sense for your nonprofit organization. So say that you are representing an arts organization in Kansas City that works with youth who supplies an after-school program that focuses on arts education, low-cost or free arts education. So we want to specify adults, or not adults, excuse me. We want to specify children and youth if we can. Yes, so we just want to mark children and youth. And then we want to go under social and economic status. And we want to Potentially economically disadvantaged people would apply here. Low income, working poor, potentially homeless, extremely poor. So we can just do all of them. And that will cast the net as wide as it can as far as the population served within that socioeconomic group. So once we've conducted that search, what we found is 3,218 grants with 505 recipients, with a little under 2,990s to look at, if that's what you're into. Most people aren't really trying to look at 990s, but if you do want to, you can. And also 392 grant makers. So let's look at that. So we've got a list of grant makers here. We've got the United Way of Greater Kansas City. So let's click on that and see what happens. So once we've clicked on United Way of Greater Kansas City, what we're looking at is this funder's profile. First, from left to right, let's look at what is being funded. They are funding health, human services, and education programs for the most part. The money is mostly going and staying in Missouri. It's also going to Kansas, which makes sense. It's going to other places around the country as well, as you can see based off of the deepness of the shade across the nation. And then over here, we want to see how big are the grants that they give out. So the majority of the grants that they give out, somewhat surprisingly, are actually within the $10,000 to $25,000 range. They've given 333 grants out of that size, or within that size range. And you can compare the other ranges as you see fit. But this section here is important to think about as far as what are your budget needs for the project that you're looking to fund. Because within Foundation Directory Online, the best way you're going to get the most mileage out of it is if you are doing a project-based funding search. So that's where knowing exactly what the budget is of your project is going to be key to evaluating if a prospect is actually a good fit for you. So if I'm trying to fund an arts program that's an after-school program, this might be a good fit, but what is a little bit alarming in my take on this is that there's nothing here that indicates that they are trying to support arts programs in particular. However, arts can roll under education, especially if we're focusing on youth. So this still might be a great fit, especially if my needs as a nonprofit organization are kind of loftier as far as the amount of money that I'm looking for. So I might feel comfortable applying for any open applications for this funder just because I have a budget that's $20,000 and they seem very comfortable with supporting projects of that size. So scrolling down more, we can see a little bit more about what this funder is about. If there are any open grants, what's key here is the most common grant amount is actually $37,000, $37,500. So it's actually more than this grant range that we saw up here. So now we can drill down a little bit deeper to see, is this really a good fit for what our needs are as an organization? So the past recipients of grants from this funder have been Children's Mercy Hospitals and Clinics, Boys and Girls Club of Greater Kansas City. Okay, that might be a fit as far as being an after-school program. Cornerstones of Care, American Red Cross, Boy Scouts of America. That might also kind of fit as far as what the focus is of the nonprofit that I'm representing. So what we see here as far as these top recipients is a lot of them are hospitals. They definitely provide direct services to low income to extremely poor people, as we have specified here. So maybe we should refine this search a little bit. If we want to focus arts and culture education on children and youth who come from families that are low income, where we are providing free and or low cost arts education, then maybe we want to not have all of these terms and just see what we can find under children and youth in general, just to cast the net differently. Just to see if we can get more results that look like they're focused on arts and culture. Okay, so we've got United Way again. Let's look. Oh, we have United Way because we have the organization specified. So let's conduct that search again. Okay, that's more like it. Okay, so we've got William Randolph Hearst Foundation, Greater Kansas City Community Foundation, Oppenstein Brothers Foundation. Let's just click on the first one like we did last time again. William Randolph Hearst Foundation. Okay, so this is a specific grant. Let's go back. Okay, let's go to view all. Don't want to look at the grant itself just yet. Let's see if we can find it again. Or, let's just pick one at somewhat random. Let's not do William T. Kemper. Let's do the Granger Foundation and see what's going on here. This is in Illinois. This may not be the best example. Let's find a different one, actually. Okay. Let's view all. And let's go ahead and just click on the Ewing, Marion, Kauffman Foundation because we know that Ewing, Marion, Kauffman is in Kansas City, Missouri. Okay. So it looks like the main programs that they focus on funding are education. And then second by kind of a lot is community and economic development. So arts and culture is on this, but doesn't seem as much as a priority. Let's look at the grant recipients. They've provided City Year, the Literacy Lab, Kansas City School District. So these are all schools. So again, this may not be the best prospect. Let's see if we can find one that really does fit. Otherwise, we're going to come out of this live demo and go back into the presentation because we know we found some. The Hall Family Foundation. Now I know that they do arts and culture at some point. Okay, let's see. Is it going to show us the profile? Okay. Well, It's not showing us the graphs, unfortunately, but to show you a little bit more about what the funder profile looks like. Funding interest. This is where you really can drill down and see, okay, what are they stating their interests are, to see if your mission aligns with their mission. That is going to be one of the most important things that helps you determine whether or not a prospect is a good fit. So as you can see, arts and culture, child development, child educational development, community and economic development, early childhood education, these are all subject areas that are priorities for this funder, the Hall Foundation. They focus on Missouri, Kansas, and the UK, of all places. The kind of support that they provide are, as far as the projects, are buildings and renovations, capital campaigns, emergency funds, equipment, and general support. So that just helps you to think about, if you're not already thinking about it, what in particular are you trying to fund related to your project? Is it the operations? Is it the equipment? Is it the space? What is it specifically? So they're telling you exactly what they're looking for. This is how you can get even more ready after you have answered those 3 questions that we posed at the very beginning of our session. Okay, so about here we can read about their mission. The foundation is dedicated to enhancing the quality of human life. So when you're reading about their mission and it's time to apply for an open application or RFP, which it stands for request for proposal, if that is a term that you're not familiar with, grant world jargon. One hack you can do is take some of the words, if you have determined, of course, if you've determined already that there's already mission alignment between what you are doing as a nonprofit organization and what this organization as a funding organization is doing, you can take some of their words and kind of mirror them in your application and use them to describe the work that you do. So in this case, the foundation is dedicated to enhancing the quality of human life. That's pretty general. Programs that enrich the community, help people, and promote excellence are considered to be of prime importance. So if we're talking about arts, that's how the words are here. We can say, this program intends to enrich the community by engaging youth in the arts, providing them low cost and free access to develop their skills. So these are things I can help you with if you're having trouble with the application process. So I don't want to get too bogged down in that, but those are just little nuggets for you to think about if this is completely new to you, or if it's not, maybe it's helpful. Hopefully it is. Okay, so other funders to consider, this can be useful in case you don't find any open applications. Let's see what their application / RFP process is. Looks like they've got some stipulations here about scholarships. There's not a form that's required. What you should submit is listed here. And this is why, if you have 501c3 status, you are favored here, because typically they're going to be asking for those documents. Okay, giving limitations. This is important. These are the devil in the details. This is what you want to read to make sure you truly are eligible. You might have determined that you are a very good fit mission-wise and interest-wise, but then you might not be eligible, especially if your search is outside of your local area. That's a very important thing. So just make sure you read the fine print, because it's there and it's actually not fine. So make sure you read it. Financials, this is just a kind of overview of how much they've given, who's who. This is important, especially if you've determined that you're eligible and there's a really good fit, but there's nothing open yet. or maybe you want to learn more about what's open. Who's Who is just a list of names of executives that you can cross-reference into LinkedIn if you have a LinkedIn account. If you don't have one, create one. It's free. We also have databases available. Well, specifically A to Z databases is the primary tool that I use with people if you're trying to find executives in a specific organization. So you can also cross-reference in A to Z. To a lesser extent, another database called Demographics Now, but we're not going to get super bogged down into that. If that's of interest to you, please feel free to follow up with me. Communications, this is just press. You can read more about that. This is especially if you're trying to create if you're trying to get your foot in the door and you don't actually know anybody at the organization, but you have a name and you found an email through A to Z somehow. You can use press to kind of let people know, hey, I know what's going on with your organization. I think we might have some mission alignment. I'm very interested in seeing how we might be able to develop a relationship and just start the conversation. All right, so enough of that. I'm going to get back into the presentation. Let's stop this share and pull up the PowerPoint again. Okay, so just to kind of summarize, how to evaluate the prospects that you find for good fit. 5 questions now for you to ask yourself. 1, do I meet this funder's requirements? So that's where you're looking at the limitations, the process that they are outlining for their applications or RFPs. And also, to a lesser extent, this is a little bit more subjective, but that mission alignment, what your stated mission is compared to what their stated mission is. Leading into, is my mission or project's goal a priority for this funder? So drilling deeper into, do you have mission alignment? Beyond just looking at your stated mission, if you already have that written out, compared to their stated mission, you want to look at their funding interests by subject area. You want to look at the priority areas within that first graph with the purple bars to see what they're actually giving money to. And you also want to see, kind of compare a bit to a more looser extent, the size of the grants that they're giving, because that's going to be important as far as determining your budget for a project-based search. So here I am leading myself again into number 3. How big are the grants? This is where you spend time on your budget. You determine exactly what it is that you need funded and how you're going to go about acquiring those funds. Are you trying to acquire those funds from one funder? Are you trying to diversify your funding sources? These are questions to ask yourself in addition to the specific project focus areas that they have stipulated on their funding profile. So that would be things related to operations, building space, paying staff, everything related to actually carrying out the project. They also have listed emergency funding, especially relevant now. We are still in a pandemic. And then last, but again, very much not least, do you know anybody associated with this funder? And this is where that who's who comes very, very important. You might know somebody in your network, especially if you're active on LinkedIn. So cross-referencing the names that you see in the funding profile and knowing that this is updated daily seeing if they are on LinkedIn, trying to initiate a conversation by looking at the press available, and just trying to get your foot in the door by initiating a conversation based off of stating the mission alignment that you've already determined by answering these previous 4 questions. That's how you get your foot in the door. That's how you develop a relationship with an organization that you didn't have a relationship with before, because more than likely you don't know somebody that's associated with the funder. And this is something that I can also help with. So we're going to skip past this. This is just an example of different organizations in the arts that seem to prioritize the arts a little bit more than the demo. And you can see very similarly to what you saw in the demo, what it looks like as far as generating a list of grant makers and seeing the grants that they've given in the past. So this grant maker is the Trio Foundation of St. Louis. You can see the different grants that they've given in the past and the size of those grants. Who's who about the funder? I'm not going to go over that again. Another thing you can do in Foundation Directory Online is search specifically by organization. So if you recall, we accidentally searched by the United Way. So if you know of an organization where you want to, if you heard of an organization and you just want to know about them, you can do that specifically. So in this this example, we're looking for the Regional Arts Commission of St. Louis. And we can go directly to that profile. Additionally, we can search for a specific person if we have a name. Say it's Bill Gates. Maybe we want to contact Bill Gates. But you can do that as well. I won't spend too much time on that. So this is just a summary again of what I covered at the beginning. This is just in writing for you to reference. This is how you can access Foundation Directory Online. I recommend going to the central branch come June 1st, where you do not have to schedule an appointment in advance if you're just browsing or trying to get used to Foundation Directory Online. If you want to, you can also receive the 24-hour pass. I will say that I have had not the most reliable access using that 24-hour pass from home when I've been using it from home. So if that poses problems, know that by June 1st, you can access it here at the Central Library. And then if you have specific requests, please don't hesitate to contact me. I will have my email included in the follow-up to this. So with the remainder of our time, we're going to talk a little bit about Grants.gov. Just a little primer of Grants.gov, just because I have gotten questions about Grants.gov from people that I have worked with who are looking for grants, and they represent a nonprofit organization. So what is Grants.gov, first of all? Grants.gov is a database where you can search for grants and cooperative agreement opportunities from federal agencies. So the federal agencies, that's the part that I want to just kind of pause and take a step back. When we're talking about federal agencies, that means we're not local anymore. So that means we are also considering grants that are more nationally focused. So take from that what you will. What do they mean by grant and cooperative agreement opportunities? Well, we have it linked, so let's go ahead and look. Okay, so Grants.gov has a plethora of information about their process. And if you're going to use Grants.gov, come to this tab first, Learn Grants, if it's all new to you, because it's very, very helpful. So what they mean by this, they're saying that they're programs, these grants are programs, and they're broadly categorized as those that are awarded by the federal government and those that are awarded by non-federal entities. So within the two categories, there are a variety of funding sources and program types. And when we look at the live demo, we'll be able to see specifically exactly what they need. So they've got grant and they've got other funding sources as well. But know that if you are a 501c3, this is definitely for you. If you are not a 501c3, but you are a nonprofit, maybe you are under a separate 501c3, you don't have your 501c3 status yet, you're under a different registered agent of a different 501c3 that has their status, you can also, you're still, for the most part, eligible. So we'll get to that as well. So this is something I recommend absolutely reading on your own and getting very familiar with. One thing else that I really want to show you is the grant eligibility. Who is actually eligible to search for and apply for grants on Grants.gov? So we've got government organizations, which includes state governments, county governments, city or township, Native American tribal governments that are federally recognized, as well as ones that are not federally recognized. Education organizations, so that would be independent school districts, public and state controlled institutions, and private institutions of higher education. Public housing organizations, and then nonprofit organizations is what I want to highlight here. Nonprofits that have a 501c3 status with the IRS, other than institutions of higher education, as well as nonprofits that don't have 501c3 status, other than institutions of higher education. So grants.gov is for you, whether or not you have a 501c3, but you're a nonprofit organization. So this is an option available to you if you're potentially in the process of getting your nonprofit status and you're registered under a separate registered agent, or not actually registered, but you're operating under that. Okay. Back to the presentation. So grants.gov has basically identified 3 phases of the grant lifecycle. They've got the pre-award phase, the award phase, and the post-award phase. So what on earth does that even mean? Let's get into that a little bit more. Back onto Grants 101. So in the pre-award phase, this is where they're really talking about, this is when the opportunity is announced. This is when the funding opportunity is announced. This is after the organization has created the opportunity and decided what funds are going to be allocated to it. So it's already ready to be spoken to the public. So there's a funding opportunity announcement. What you want to do is register if you determine that you're eligible and it's a good fit, and then complete the application. So that's the pre-award phase. You don't have the award yet, you've applied for the award. Or you are prospecting and then you apply. That's the pre-award phase. The award phase is when you are notified whether or not you receive the award. So if you get the award, then of course you move on to the post-award phase. It's pretty straightforward, but figured I would cover it. Post-award phase is where it gets a little bit more hands-on. This is where you have a lot more work to do. This is where you have any deliverables to report on. Any auditing that might be required happens during this phase. This is a phase that can take a while. So definitely make sure you're reading this when you're applying to anything on grants.gov, because especially with federal grants, you're going to have more intense reporting measures than anything that you're going to find locally for the most part. Okay. One thing that's also very, very, very helpful here is grants.gov has a getting started checklist. So make sure that you're familiar with the grant lifecycle, as we just covered. Make sure that you're eligible. Find the right types of funding opportunities for you. So let's get into this. So we've already kind of covered this, right? But let's get into what that actually looks like in the search. So there's a lot going on here. It can be very overwhelming if you're new to this, especially if you're not really somebody that uses databases that often for other uses. It can be, ooh, did not mean to get into this, but here we go. So let's just kind of like take an overview. I'm just going to point out the things that are the most important that you need to look at. Don't worry about the opportunity number unless somebody gives that to you because you have some kind of relationship with the federal government. This is not important for you to know because you're not going to be searching by opportunity number. You're going to be searching by keyword, or you're going to be just using the filters. Opportunity title, just focus on that, to be perfectly honest, as far as if you're just trying to skim through. Title is, that will indicate more or less if it's something that makes sense for you. Of course, like there's a lot that you can see here that relates to health, emergency funding, food supply. So you can just kind of like take a look, just glancing what is listed. And so what they've got here are opportunity status here. This is important. Posted means that it's already available. Forecasted means that it's not yet available. So let's just see what that means if we look at this entry, because it says it's forecasted. So if it's forecasted, it means that you can't yet apply, but you can subscribe. So if it's interesting to you, you would click to subscribe and then be prompted to register. Okay, so if we want to conduct a search, we could do a keyword search, but I think what might be more useful with this is to just look through the filters. So let's look at the funding instrument type. I'm a 501c3, so I'm mostly interested in grants, but I might be a small business that's also interested in a procurement contract or a nonprofit or a cooperative agreement. But let's just focus on grants. That has the most entries. All eligibilities. Let's see, what are the specific eligibilities? We're going to say nonprofits having a 501c3 and nonprofits that do not. So what we can see here is that between these two statuses, we've got slightly more opportunities for nonprofits that have a 501c3 versus nonprofits that do not. So maybe we should I'm curious, I want to filter for the ones that do not have a 501c3 status. And then I want to see if we can find any for arts. It looks like if I click on that, on arts, cultural affairs, and let's also do community development. Now we've got a grand total of 13 results, looks like. And they're all posted, so they're all current. Okay, let's look at this. AmeriCorps state and national tribal grants, annual FY, don't know what that means. Promoting gender equality through music. Let's see what that's about. That looks interesting. This was posted on April 5th, 2021. See what's going on with this one. So eligible applicants are nonprofits that do not have a 501c3 status with the IRS, other than institutions of higher education, and nonprofits that do have a 501c3 status with the IRS, other than institutions of higher ed. Okay, this agency name is U.S. Mission to India. So even though we thought this could be an interesting thing, this looks very, very, very specific. So as you can see here, Grants.gov is not really a project-based search database for grants. You can't really search based off of your project. What you're finding on grants.gov are grant opportunities that have a specific focus, and they are being dispelled through the federal system because they are casting a wide net. So, I mean, maybe it can spark an idea for funding, but depending on your needs, this may not be relevant for what you're doing, even though you specified the filters that seem to make sense. So let's go back to the search results. Let's go to the AmeriCorps state and national tribal grants. So what we've got here are the listed eligible applicants. Let's see what is going on with the additional information. Okay, so this is basically funding to support labor. Or excuse me, I read that wrong. This is basically where you can apply to have people power as well as funding through their programs. So people power through their AmeriCorps network, it seems like, but you'd want to read more. Okay, I'm going to get back into the presentation. So the specific process, if you've identified an opportunity through grants.gov, after you've determined whether you're eligible or not, and you are eligible, you want to register with grants.gov. So there's a link to that page to register that looks like this. You'll create a profile. You'll set a username and password, and then what you'll do is just click here, read through the steps. They like to be very detailed. It's important to just make sure you know what you're doing as you're doing this. And then you'll click on begin. Pretty straightforward. And then for whatever application that you're applying for, and usually, with grants.gov versus Foundation Directory Online, when you're using grants.gov, you're probably not going to be identifying more than one or two opportunities unless you are specifically in the health sector, because there's a lot going on in the health innovation sector, also STEM as well, that is happening on the federal level. So if you're more of a community development or arts and culture, the national federal grants that are available are going to be very, very specific and to the funding organization. So if you find one that fits, more than likely, you're not going to find too many others, but you might be lucky. But once you've found an opportunity, and that's why I say an opportunity instead of a list of prospects, that's when you register. You're going to then complete the application, and just know that the process can take several weeks. And that is all done through grants.gov. You will download and submit the materials through grants.gov, and you will be able to track and save your progress as you go. So when, if you want to hear back from the agency, the grantor agency, that's the term that they use. It's the same term. It means the same thing as a funder. You'll be able to stay in contact because contact information will be provided as well. But it's kind of a similar process to the life cycle within Foundation Directory Online if you're applying through Foundation Directory Online. Keeping that relationship alive will be the most important thing going forward as far as developing a relationship, if that is a goal for you. Okay, so this is just a screenshot of what we saw in the live demo. Over here, you're really going to focus on the keyword. Don't worry about an opportunity number or a CFDA. Just focus on the keyword. Or you can focus on the filters themselves and just see what's there to browse around. I already did the live demo. We did things a little bit out of order, but that's okay. We like to keep people on their toes. Okay, so last but not least, here's my contact information. Up here, I've got my Calendly link scheduled. So if you want to schedule an appointment with me to go through any of this more in depth, please do so. It's very easy to do that. You just click here through this link and it will take you to my Calendly. You have the option between a 30-minute and a 60-minute meeting. So I'm not just a nonprofit specialist. I work with for-profit business owners as well. So if you have both a nonprofit and a small business that's for-profit, I can help you with both, no problem. We have a number of resources that I have not even talked about that a lot of folks become very kind of surprised. Specifically, one is called Legal GPS. It has helped a lot of people with just getting the steps as far as getting all the things you need ready to file your nonprofit. Getting your board of directors. It takes you through the entire process. So if that's something that you're working on, please feel free to schedule a meeting with me and we can go through Legal GPS. And whatever else you need in addition to that, know that I am available for multiple meetings. This is not just a one-off thing. This is what I do here. So that is my Calendly scheduling link that is available within this presentation that I'm going to send to all the registrants. You can also email me directly. My email here is posted. If you have any questions or any search requests, you can shoot them to me by email. Phone is a little bit difficult because you just have to make sure to leave a voicemail and then I'll call you back. But email is you'll get a faster response, or schedule an appointment. All right, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and end this presentation. I hope that you found something useful from this. Hopefully a lot of it was useful for you. If anything, at least the updates to the remote access to Foundation Directory Online. I want to make sure people that are trying to access this resource from home, especially if you have been accessing it since the pandemic started, I hope that you know about this change. So I'm going to make sure that you have that information. So in addition to this presentation itself, you will get 2 emails if you registered for this. And to anybody else that I might have talked to one-on-one who might not have registered, you'll get this as well. You will get a copy of this presentation that you can use as your own guide and reference because it's got the screenshots and it kind of just takes you through. And then later on, I will be sending a link to a YouTube playback. Once that's ready, it won't be ready today. It'll be ready probably, hopefully before the end of the week, but if not, early next week. And I'll make sure that you have that as well. That'll be a separate email. But today you will get this presentation as well as the tip sheet for accessing Foundation Directory Online remotely. All right, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and end this presentation. Thank you for watching, and please have a great rest of your day. All right.